I'm Egbert, the owner of this station. Check out my website at egbert.com. That's EGGBURT, egbert.com. Now it's back to Brad and John. Check out their website at bjshow.co. The BJ Show? Come on, guys. Anyway, here's B and J.
He's still not happy with our website, John. What are we going to do? What are we going to do?
We're going to leave it there because other people are invested in it, Brad. Other people go there. They go there Monday through Friday. They go there on the weekends to catch up. It's a beautiful thing.
You know what? You sound like Donald Trump there. It's a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful. It's the most spectacular
right.
website
It's the best ever. And of course, because I did it, right? No, actually, we're getting more and more traffic on the website. More and more traffic.
You don't say.
Oh,
you don't say, Brad.
Yeah, we're getting more and more traffic on the website. Sometimes, I don't know if that's good or bad. Okay. He is John Combest, Combest. I spell his last name because his name is his website, johncombest.com. And for 22 plus years, every single day, he combs every single available piece of information on the internet as far as state's concerned. Politics, what's going on in communities, various different things like that, who's running for office, who's not running for office, all that kind of stuff. And he puts it on one website, johncombest.com, and he shows up on the show here after he finishes it every morning, and we start off our show with, who do we have right here that does our announcing for us?
I'm Casey Kasem.
And he gives us the top 3 stories in the state of Missouri. And here he is with...
In third place...
Who's running for office? Brad Hildebrand teases up. I'll answer that question for you. State Senator Lincoln Huff from the Springfield area has announced yesterday he's making it official. He's running for lieutenant governor.
Really?
He's entering a pretty crowded field. It's getting a little crowded in there, Brad. We have from the St. Louis area, we have Speaker of the House Dean Plocher. We have State Senator Holly Rader, who's from the southeast part of the state. We have from freedom-loving Franklin County Clerk Tim Baker. And we have an old acquaintance of Brad Hildebrand, St. Louis area businessman Paul Berry III has announced he's also running for lieutenant governor.
Paul Berry III. Have you ever talked with him before?
I think I met him, a decade ago. I don't know him, but I think I met him at some kind of events. There were some St. Louis County Republicans that were attempting to win elections, a decade plus ago when we had the pipe dream of winning the St. Louis County executive race, and I'm thinking this is around 2008, 2010, something along those lines. But I know you know him well.
Well, I don't know him well. He's an interesting character. Matter of fact, to the point where if you want to, I could call him and get him on the air pretty quick because he's just an interesting guy. I mean, now does he actually own? Isn't he one of these guys? And forgive me if I'm wrong here, but he says he owns radio stations. But does he actually own them or not? Well, it's a complicated situation. If you go on the FCC database and you go through, he bought, supposedly, we use air quotes, he supposedly bought and ran what used to be Bert Kaufman's station, which is now Tracy's station. It's a complicated deal. But essentially, he entered into an agreement to buy the stations, but he never consummated them. So in other words, supposedly, as the story goes, he defaulted. He had these stations, and he was actually because at the time the stations, the old KXEN, the WGNU, now KXEN is got Tracy, and WGNU is got K-Wolf on it, which is sort of weird. But that's a whole nother story. But
So in other words, he didn't consummate the deal, so he never actually owned them. But he still maintains that he's in the radio business, right?
Or
maybe he does. I don't know.
I will tell you an incredibly funny story off air, because if I tell it on air, people will tell me that I'm lying, because it's so bizarre and so strange and so weird that if I told it online, if I told it on the air, there would be people who go like, okay, BS, I call BS on this. And it's honest to God true, but it's a weird story.
Interesting. And so speaking of, by the way, other radio stations, Tim Baker, I think Tim was on a few weeks ago. I was in the car and I went to listen to Brian Nieves' show, and it was that period of time that Brian was out of town and he had another gentleman filling in for him. And I believe Tim Baker was on the air with the guy who was filling in for Brian Nieves. So it's real interesting. Excuse me. It's real interesting here, Brad, because you look at the ideological lanes here, and Lincoln Huff fills that role really well of, if you're a Republican that supports Governor Parson and you like what he's done and you believe that he's limited the size of government and spent money on things that need money, you're probably pretty favorable to a Lincoln Huff. But if you're a Freedom Caucus type and you believe that the government is spending way too much money and Governor Parson is spending way too much money, you're looking for your candidate here, and you might look toward a Tim Baker more than you would look toward a Lincoln Huff. But Lincoln Huff is going to have a ton of money. He appropriates the budget. He's the budget guy, Brad. So he can go around the state this summer credibly and say, hey, you know that expansion we're having on I-70? You're welcome. This is the guy that got that money for it. So the candidates will be looking for their own lanes here, and it's going to be a crowded field.
Interesting enough, Tim Baker used to advertise on this very radio station a long time ago.
Wow,
because way back when he ran his family's company, which was an ice company that was located in Pacific. And he sold it to a big national company, but he used to say, and he was when I say ice, people going, ice? Yeah, he was the guy that did the things like when you go to like the Quickie Mart and you want to buy a bag of ice, that was what they did. Their main job was
interesting.
And interesting enough, I've never toured the plant, but I know people who've toured the plant. Fascinating the way they make it, and it's you'd think it was like a big old freezer with like the trays in it and stuff like that. It's actually a very complicated process of making ice and distilling. Now, what is he right now? What did you say he's currently?
He's the clerk of Franklin County.
He runs for all sorts of crazy stuff. Matter of fact, I don't never understand this thing. One point in time, Brian Nieves ran for recorder of deeds in Franklin County.
By the way, speaking of Jason Rosenbaum, one of Rosenbaum's punchlines is recorder of deeds. Like Jason's fascinated by the concept of people wanting to be a recorder of deeds anywhere.
What and see, that was the interesting thing when Brian. See, the crazy thing was Brian had this tremendously, combative election to get the Senate seat. And when he didn't run for re-election. He only ran one term, and then he decided he was going to run for recorder of deeds in Franklin County. Everybody went, "What?
Hey, deeds need to be recorded." Brian.
Well, he lost. He got killed. He got killed in the election. I mean,
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't even come close. I mean, I think people, because once again, I'm thinking to myself, okay, the recorder of deeds, okay, I mean, just like you said, now legally. Very important position because of the fact
Correct,
that,
yeah.
They're the ones that control all the real estate, and you have to, and other aspects of personal property and things like that. But it's just sort of weird. Okay, I'm getting a little bit out of control here. I got to shut up. We got to move along. Casey, what's coming up next?
Up a notch to number 2.
When you go to the pump, if you wish you could do something to support other industries, besides Mideast oil barons, and you want to put a little more ethanol in your tank, you're in luck. Well, not until summer of 2025. The EPA has the EPA restricts ethanol blends in the summer out of fear that ethanol blends can create more smog. So to the delight of the ethanol industry, the EPA says that they will allow a greater summer ethanol mix of 15%, but not until summer of 2025, Brad. So the ethanol industry is pretty upset about this. They want consumers to be able to go to the pump all year long and fill up with 15% ethanol. The EPA says you got to wait until 2025 to do so.
I thought we already ordered 15%, or is it 10% right now?
No, it's 15%, but not in the summer months.
Oh.
Because there are concerns that ethanol, as I understand it, creates more smog in the summertime.
I got you. It's 15% max, but you can't do 15% in the summer, and they're trying to make it 15% year-round.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
So it's important, particularly today. First of all, it's a new rule. The ethanol industry is making a lot of noise about this. And corn prices are down roughly 30% over the last year. So if you're a corn producer, you take a look at what you're getting paid for your corn. You want anything you can to increase more demand for that corn that you're producing.
Well, it's interesting. You say the ethanol industry is making a lot of noise. The oil industry makes no noise. You know why?
Why is that?
They're well lubricated.
They are well lubricated.
I'm sorry.
Dun, 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 dun.
Okay, and moving along.
And here they are, the number one.
The number one.
If you are one of the trillions of Americans who's crippled with student loan debt, President Biden is coming to save you. If you haven't heard, President Biden announced that he is personally forgiving and canceling even more student debt. Now, yesterday, Missouri's junior senator, Eric Schmidt, appeared on Fox News, the Ingram Angle. If you're looking for a good 3-minute overview of the issue, take a look at the top link on my website today. It's the Ingram Angle from Fox News. And Eric Schmidt, the TLDR version of this is that Eric Schmidt just comes out and says, look, President Biden is shopping for. The Supreme Court already said that, quote, canceling student debt is unconstitutional. That the Biden administration just can't go do that willy-nilly. But President Biden is just shopping for votes right now. So it's a quick 3-minute hit. Check it out. The top link on my website today.
John, I screwed up, okay? Something fell on the board here, and I didn't know what was going on, and I accidentally turned you off for like 10 seconds. So give me the last 10 seconds what you just said.
Boy, people have wished they could have a mute button on me for a long time, Brad. Eric Schmidt was on the Ingram Angle on Fox News yesterday talking about the Biden plan to, quote, cancel student loan debt. Check it out. It's a good 3-minute overview. The Missouri senator says that Biden is trying to, quote, buy votes with this plan in an election year. And he talks about how it's unconstitutional. The Supreme Court has already ruled on this. So it's a good 3-minute hit.
Well, I've heard a couple of people talk about this, and supposedly the qualifications on this loan forgiveness from Biden are that you had less than $10,000 in debt, and it was more than 10 years old. And I'm thinking to myself, no, hold on a minute now. And
yeah, how does that math work?
Well, but here's what's interesting: the people who are making fun of this, primarily the Republicans, are saying, hold on a minute now. If you got a college loan and it was for $10,000 and it's 10 years later and you haven't been able to pay that off, then maybe your college degree was not very efficient at you getting a good job, because if you had gotten a good job with your college degree, you'd be able to pay that loan off with no problem.
You know why, Brad? Because there's institutional discrimination against gender studies majors.
Man, don't go there, John. Here we go.
We need to fix that. But yeah, and you know what? As Gen Z says, Brad, looking at that math, the math isn't mathing. If you're not able to make that math work and you got that student loan, then what are you doing, man?
Well, the thing that bothers me about this, and once again, I am a college, a 2-degree guy, which I have 2 useless degrees. And when I used to do the show with Shelly, she'd always go, I can't believe you said that, because she'd always talk about how degrees are so important.
Right.
Not anymore. But if you're like a guy who graduated from college, and instead of, taking on a lot of loan, you started an apprentice program, and with, like the carpenters and or the pipe fitters and stuff like that. I mean, you don't have any debt, and you're going like, okay, why is that dude over there getting, having the government forgive a loan, whereas, I'm out here busting my hump every day. You know what I mean? I mean, it's to the point.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and the frustrating thing is, whoever writes Biden's statements for him and whoever writes Cardona's statements for him, the ed secretary, there was a line in there about like, people need the phrase they used, Brad, was breathing room, because people got to pay their bills. Well, that guy that did an apprenticeship 10 years ago to be a carpenter, he had to tighten his belt a little bit too. Like that's not to say that it's easy for him in 2024, but people make choices, and when you choose to take on an extreme amount of debt, you got to pay the piper.
See, there was a time, and you and I could talk about this maybe at another time, but there was a time when you would go to your bank and talk to your bank about a student loan, okay? And if I'm, I don't have any kids that go into college anymore, but I had 4 kids.
Yeah.
There was a time when you did not go through the government. Maybe you did. I can't remember the whole deal. But essentially, the government controls all the student loans. Now, correct? Isn't that the way it is?
It's essentially a monopoly.
Right. Now, and here's the crazy part of that is that there's no competition because the government controls the whole thing. And not only that, it's to the point where it's, if you can, like let's say people get themselves into credit problem by, hey, come on in and buy this new car. It's only $65,000. Your payments are only going to be $800 a month for the next.
And you don't have to pay for the first 6 months.
Right. And so in other words, you're sort of kind of lulled into, oh my God, this is going to be great. You're going to get a college degree and you're going to be making $150,000 a year. You'll be able to pay this degree off in no time at all. And that's not what happens. And don't you think the government is all into these crazy disclaimers? Don't you think the government should have a disclaimer on their own loans, essentially saying, by applying for this loan, you could be in debt for the next 30 years of your life?
Oh, of course. But you know what? The government needs to pay more attention to warning labels on salty food, Brad, as we discussed earlier in the week.
Bernie Sanders, right. Okay. John is, I have to tell you, after yesterday, I am going to say that I like, what's the old Wayne's World thing? We're not worthy. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy.
Oh,
I'm on a show with John Combest, who is Mr. Collected, or Connected, rather. I got not one, not two, but 3 different people contacting me yesterday who are going to be on the show. One of them's coming up next. Do you know about this?
No. I don't know.
Next is Taylor Burks.
Nice.
Yes.
Very nice.
Now, were you the guy behind this, or did you make the call on this? Because he called me.
Yesterday, and remind me how this went yesterday. I know we're up against break, but remind me, one person yesterday said that congressional candidates wouldn't appear on our show, and the other person said, of course they would. And I don't remember which one's which.
So he's baiting me. That's what he's doing. I said they would not, and you said they would. Okay, so
That's right. Thank you.
Yes,
I do remember that.
You're making fun of me now. Okay, so here's the schedule. Today, it's Taylor Burke, as soon as we get past this break. Monday, it's Mary Elizabeth Coleman.
Nice.
And Tuesday, it's Bob Onder.
There we go, Brad.
So, here we go. Now, and John's sitting there thinking, see, the funny thing is John knows all about this, but, he's not going to fess up to it. Okay, we have to take a break and get Taylor on here.